Generative AI, and we will get started. Excellent. Excellent. So our speaker today, Neil Taylor, and yes, it's what do HR leaders need to know about generative AI? Hi, Kristen. Thanks for joining us. Excellent, Whitney. We're just going to get started. I'm going to start with certainly a couple of thank yous. Kelly, Kristen, Neil from Visier for your help to get this kind of pulled through or set up. And then my partner in crime, Adina Johnston, she and I were co-chairs or leaders or whatever of this third quarter presentations. We had a number of webinars. Things went really well. Thank you to Sally and Mary for your guidance and support throughout this process. And then just wanted to give an ad here for October 5th is the Leadership Forum for PSPS, a signature event, annual signature event. We have Annie Duke, Jeepers, about making better decisions. It is a two-part, all in one day, but 2 sessions with a break in between. So hands-on learning, group interactivities, and then ending in a happy hour. So please go to the website, take a look, October 5th, the Leadership Forum. And then today, Neil Taylor, Vice President of Product Marketing, Content and Experience, which is a great title. I think it might have been created using generative AI. I'm kidding there. But at Visier, and he brings a wealth of experience with Citrix and other organizations around product marketing, brand strategy, etc. So we're very excited. Neil, take it away.
Thanks, Morris, and thanks everybody for having me. I appreciate the time and excited to share some background. I'll talk a little bit about myself, just give a quick intro and talk a little bit more about Visier as well. I always joke that I am the lone marketer in a family filled with HR professionals. My dad was in HR, my mother-in-law is in HR, my brother is in HR, my brother-in-law is in HR, my sister-in-law is in HR, and I'm in marketing. So don't know how that worked out, but it's not uncommon for my father to bring some pre-employment surveys and questions to the Thanksgiving dinner table. And so the first year I was married, that was a big embarrassment for me in front of my wife as we completed a DISC assessment at the Thanksgiving table. So I'm an HR person at heart for sure. And in Visier, the company that I'm representing today, does a lot with HR. We're uniquely positioned in the HR space and talk to HR leaders every day about their biggest problems. And ultimately what we do is we bring data to the table. We bring people data to the table to help organizations make better decisions for the person and for the business. And so I'll talk a little bit about that today. But enough with the introduction. As Morris shared, today I'm going to talk about what HR leaders need to know about generative AI. And the subtitle there, Hype versus Hope, there is a lot of hype around Gen AI. And I think all of us can agree that, it's difficult to go a day or even an hour without hearing about generative AI or reading about it on LinkedIn or having a colleague talk about it. And so, there is a lot of hype surrounding it. And, kind of depending on your position, it can be somewhat fearful, or it can be exciting, or maybe some combination of both. And so I'm going to talk about that today and hopefully dispel some of the fear around generative AI. But before I do that, let's just go through a quick agenda. And want to make sure we're all on kind of level footing here as we talk about generative AI and the definition of what it is. I'll also talk a little bit about what a lot of people are saying about how it will impact the business. And then some potential pitfalls, because certainly there are some potential pitfalls, but those are navigable for sure. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then how it will impact HR in what I believe a beneficial way. And then we'll talk a little bit more about people data and organizations leveraging people data through generative AI to make better decisions for the business. And we'll wrap up with some steps that you all can take right away to start to leverage AI. So let's talk a little bit about what generative AI is. So, prior to maybe 6 months, a year ago, I think we had all kind of heard about AI, but it was when ChatGPT really came on the scene that the acceleration and kind of knowledge behind AI really started to take off. And generative AI specifically is a subset of artificial intelligence. And, in a lot of cases, artificial intelligence is using machine learning to make predictions, but generative AI is different and unique in that it's generating new content. So it's taking all of this data that's been trained on and is generating new content. And on the left, you can see ChatGPT. I think that's probably what most people are familiar with. I took the abstract from this presentation and plugged it into ChatGPT and asked them for an 8-word summary of what I was going to present today. And so, you can see there that it took a matter of seconds to generate that. Images are another one that is another type of content that can be generated based on data. We are using that at Visier. We've begun using that at Visier to generate new images for our ad copy. So this is ad copy and ad images. And so you can see here that we're talking about skills and kind of a tongue-in-cheek promotion of our skills product and just the importance of having the right skills in the right place. So for us to go out and do a photo shoot to do this would be pretty expensive, but generating it through AI took a matter of seconds. And, kind of the play on words there is delivery skill is very different depending on the context. So delivering mail is very different from delivering a child. So images, audio and video as well. Audio is being created, music is being created through generative AI. And then lastly, which is really where Visier plays, is data analysis. And so I'll talk a little bit about a new digital assistant that we are bringing to market in a couple months that brings insights to managers about their people. And it's conversational in nature. Ask any question and get a response. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So potential benefits. Let's go toward the light first. And there are huge benefits to generative AI, and there are a lot of estimates out there. One from McKinsey. McKinsey estimates that there will be $4.1 trillion in economic value added on an annual basis because of generative AI, and that's through productivity increases, new revenue streams, you name it. And just for reference, the entire GDP of the United Kingdom is 3.1 trillion. So we'll be adding basically more than the UK from a GDP standpoint across the globe. The second one here, I think this is where a lot of the fear comes in. People are asking at the employee level, where does this leave me? Is my job going to be eliminated? And there will be jobs eliminated over time. But the good news, according to the World Economic Forum, is that more new jobs will be created than lost. And so it's that shift in displacement of jobs, but new jobs being created. And this is not something that is new at all. And I think those of us who lived through kind of the dot-com boom or the internet boom of the late 90s and into the early 2000s, that was a pretty big sea change in productivity and automation, and just the way that jobs were created and business was done. And so we've been through this before. This is a chart showing over time the Industrial Revolution and the shift in jobs from agriculture to manufacturing. And so we all know today, looking back, that that was probably a little bit of a scary time, but people are much more prosperous coming out of that industrial revolution, and more net new jobs were created over time. And so I think we're going through something similar today. I would say that probably the biggest change is that it's happening much more rapidly. And so not to say that it's going to be exactly the same. It will take time for sure. But my belief is that in general, it will have a net positive impact. And the other thing I would say here is, not all jobs and not all industries are created equal. Some will be impacted more than others. And so it's really important to make sure that you have an understanding of which jobs, which skills may be automated in the future, and that you begin planning for the future. So let's talk a little bit about potential pitfalls of generative AI. And the way I want to think about this is really just in terms of software. And so there are a lot of new Gen AI tools popping up every day that promise increased productivity or lower costs or whatever it might be. And there for sure are some pitfalls, and we'll talk through each of these. I believe that there will be an entire economy that will crop up around AI, just as it has for the internet and every other wave of automation for that. And that economy that crops up around generative AI will help with governance. It will help with creating new tools and creating safe, responsible use of AI. And a lot of those safeguards are in place today. Certainly from a governance standpoint, we see the government beginning to think about this. Certainly it's difficult to stay in front of, but going into it with eyes wide open and understanding the pitfalls is kind of the first thing to make sure you understand. So the first big one is security, and this is a headline from a few months back where a Samsung engineer had input proprietary code into ChatGPT. And so the thing to remember with ChatGPT and a lot of these AI tools is that information is not really guaranteed to be secure. And so Samsung had to put a halt to that and make sure they had clear communication around usage of tools like ChatGPT. And so, the big thing there is to make sure that you're working with your IT team to put a policy together, if you haven't already, around usage of generative AI tools. Another pitfall is around accuracy. And you all have probably heard about generative AI tools hallucinating. And what that means is they've been trained on all of this data, and ultimately generative AI recognizes patterns. But if that data that they're being trained on is inaccurate, it can also lead to inaccuracies, or it can put together patterns of information that aren't really realistic. And so not sure if you all can pick out the inaccuracy here, but this is an image that was generated through a tool called Midjourney. And the request was to show advertising industry executives talking about the advertising industry on a beach. And so at first glance, this is a pretty photorealistic image. But upon further and closer examination, you'll see that this woman has a third leg. And so it's very, very important to make sure that you're training any generative AI tool on accurate data, and that you have safeguards in place. The thing I would say here is certainly Gen AI does make mistakes or can make mistakes, but humans do as well. And so, reviewing work and understanding the work becomes very important. And so, this talking about training generative AI on a data set, that data set is extremely important. And bias is a major, major challenge. And if we think about historically the amount of bias that exists in the world, that can lead to future bias as well. And so this is another image from a tool called Stable Diffusion. And the request was for a color photograph of a CEO. And you'll see here that the majority of these images generated are white males. And there are a couple women on the page, but this summary here shows that what was output was 94 men, 5 women, and 1 ambiguous. And so, bias can be perpetuated if not handled in the proper way. And so again, that data set that's being trained on and just understanding the potential for bias becomes very, very important. And so lastly, lack of transparency. This is really where it all comes together. And transparency is all about explaining the reasoning behind the output. And so whoever is using the tool needs to understand the potential for bias, the data set, and the rationale for decisions being made by generative AI. And the really important thing here is working with a software vendor or working with a partner that you can trust and that is transparent, that can explain the rationale behind the output. And then from our standpoint at Visier, because we're dealing with people data, security becomes very, very important, and only sharing data with those that are authorized. People data is extremely sensitive, as you all know, and so you don't want it to get into the wrong hands. So that security aspect becomes very, very important. So those are some potential pitfalls. But again, these can be overcome with governance, with diligence, and with the right partners. And partnering internally and externally is very important here as well. So all this can be overcome, but still going in with eyes wide open is extremely important. So let's go back toward the light and talk about some of the benefits, because the benefits are really, really massive. And from a productivity and cost standpoint, I think you saw earlier how complex tasks that used to take hours can now be completed in a matter of seconds. And so the productivity gains that can be realized through generative AI are very, very significant. And that is mostly what you see and hear about, is just efficiency and productivity increases. And that's very, very important. The second I would say, though, is identification of risk. And so when we think about risk in the HR space, that could be risk of potential resignations, risk of lower productivity based on behavior. Being able to identify that early on before it becomes an issue is another big value of generative AI. And then the third, which I think is the most strategic of the three, is better and faster decisions. And so we at Visier bring together all of your HR data, all of your people data, and we unify that in one place. And we help you make sense of it. We help you glean insights in a very intuitive and fast way to make better decisions. And so as we think about the strategic value of generative AI, making better and faster decisions for the person and for the business becomes a huge, huge growth lever. It also becomes a way for HR to really be a partner for the rest of the business and unlock that true transformational growth. So some very, very big benefits, and let's break that down a little bit more by HR functions and roles. And so I chose 4 here. There are many, many more than this, but I think examples are always beneficial in understanding, how Gen AI may impact specific roles that you have or roles within your team. And so the first is learning and development. And there was a time where learning and development was really just reserved for top executives. or people that were viewed as high potential. And generative AI really provides the opportunity to provide personalized coaching at scale, based on the individual. And so I think that will open up a huge opportunity to upskill, to reskill the workforce. The second here, talent acquisition. I think this one's pretty commonly known, but being able to identify and communicate with ideal candidates. So that's a big challenge, going out and sourcing the right candidates for a particular job can take a lot of manual effort, and communicating can as well. And so there are some productivity gains that can be made there on the TA side. Talent management, performance evaluation, and feedback. This is another one where there's opportunity to augment the human and get a more holistic view of performance, and eliminate bias and provide more real-time feedback. And so generative AI is going to do that as well. And then from the standpoint of HRBPs, but also people managers, as I mentioned before, and I'll show this here in a second, getting immediate answers to any people-related question. That's going to be a huge unlock for the HRBP in becoming a better partner to the business, and also for the people manager in making better decisions for the employee. So with generative AI, the genie is out of the bottle. By 2026, according to Gartner, over 100 million humans will engage with robo-colleagues to contribute to their work. And so this isn't a replacement of work. This is augmenting work. And so this is definitely something that I think probably most of you are experimenting with today, and that's only going to grow in popularity over time. From an application standpoint, as recently as 2020, only about 5% of enterprise applications actually had conversational AI embedded in them. That is going to increase to around 40% by the end of next year. And so, as you're thinking about software that you're purchasing, and I'm sure other departments are thinking about this as well, conversational AI is becoming part of the overall HR tech stack. And so it's going to, again, drive those productivity and efficiency increases, and it's also going to help with making better decisions. So this is happening, and it's happening fairly quickly. So, one of the things we talk about Visier is just the importance of the employee. And we really believe that the last 25 years, it's been interesting to witness just the kind of obsession over the customer, acquiring customers, retaining customers, growing customers, and the amount of dollars that have been kind of funneled into that world. And it's become a very, very data-driven world. But we believe that the next 25 years is going to be all about the employee, and unlocking growth for the business, as we all know, is going to come through people, and having the right data and insights to do that is absolutely imperative. So we think the next 25 years is all about the employee. And as you all know, HR is expected to drive corporate performance through people. And so that is our mission as well, is to partner with HR leaders to do that. And, people data, I've talked a little bit about this, but people data, I think in a lot of circles is viewed as something that helps measure impact. So, are programs helping with retention? Are they helping us acquire better talent? And ultimately, we believe people data helps you create impact. And, I talked through some of those examples here today. But that's really where Visier sits, is leveraging people data to create impact. And what we do is really kind of three phases. One is we collect data from all of your disparate HR systems. So that may be your LMS, your ATS, your employee engagement tool, your HRIS, and we bring all that data together, we analyze it, and we surface insights to the people who need it, whether that's within HR or outside of HR to people managers. That could be the C-suite who wants to understand, how are we doing on our DEI initiatives? Are we on track to achieve it? Or execs that want to understand, what does turnover look like by gender or by career level? Or HRBPs who are working with people managers to develop top employees. What learning and development courses actually lead to better behaviors and higher performance, and on down the line. We bring all that data together to help organizations make better decisions. And we believe that the right insights in the right hands at the right time throughout the business is what's going to lead to that performance. And the right time is really, really important. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because we've always provided people answers on demand, and this is just a quick demo of our product and how it's historically looked. And so we work with people analytics teams to provide these insights in build these visuals and allow managers to explore and get to the information that they need. And we make that very, very simple. We make that very, very easy. The next wave that we're bringing to market, as I mentioned before, is a new generative AI tool, which is completely conversational and allows people within the organization, whether it be HR or executives or managers, to ask a people-related question in plain English and get an answer. And that answer is in a perfect language, usually is accompanied by a visual showing that answer as well, and then also suggests other information that person may be curious to learn. And so this is providing people answers really at the speed of thought and shortens that distance to impact. And the best thing of all is, from a security standpoint, we are able to only share the information with people based on their security clearance that you determine. And so we're never sharing any information that someone should not have access to. And that's a very, very difficult thing to build in-house, but something that we've perfected over our last 13 years or so, leading the people analytics space. So we think this is just going to make people answers much more accessible to the business and ultimately drive better decisions on behalf of the business and its employees. We have one other product called Visier Skills Intelligence Engine. And this one I thought was relevant for today from the standpoint of automation. So everyone's wondering whether they're saying it out loud or not, what's going to happen with their job in the future? Will it be automated? Will my job be automated? I'm sure that certain parts of it will be. But we have a tool called Skills Intelligence that identifies the skills that your organization has today, so that you can also understand the skills that your organization needs. And one of the dimensions that we're able to show is an automation index. And so by skill, by job, we can show you what are the odds of this skill or this job being automated in the future on a scale of 1 to 100. And so that really helps from a planning standpoint as you're thinking about the future and you're thinking about who you need to hire and who you need to retain and who you need to reskill. Which of those skills are going to be automated in the future? And so that's another one that's really important, moving forward as you're thinking about adapting to generative AI and adapting to this new way of working. So this is my last slide. Actions you can take now. I think probably most of you are already trying or using generative AI in some way, shape, or form. If you're not, I would encourage you to, and I would encourage you to stay current and partner internally to stay current. Work with your IT team to stay current. It's a rapidly evolving space, and one that is going to really change the way we all work. The second, I'm also guessing you probably have, but based on the Samsung example, it's really important to have a usage policy that is clearly communicated. And so your IT team can help with that, but you certainly don't want proprietary information going out over the open web. And so making sure that policy is communicated is really important. The third, which I just mentioned, start thinking about your future skills plan and what the future of your workforce might look like. And certainly we can help you with that. And then fourth, if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about Visier, what we can do to help, we're more than happy to help you with that. Kristen Venta, you probably see on the call, is our AE in the local area, Philadelphia, and the region surrounding. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions now or later, and a couple links on here to learn a little bit more about us as well. So that's it for me. I'm happy to answer any
Great.
questions that have come up.